Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Morning Mindset. I trust you are ready to get your mind aligned with the truth of God. And if you are new to the Morning Mindset, let me just personally say welcome. I realize this is a recording and it's kind of weird to say personally, but I genuinely mean that. Whoever you are, however you found the Morning Mindset, I'm so happy that you're here. Please join us as we seek to align our minds with God's truth as we discover it in the Scriptures together. We've been doing that most recently in the book of 1 Peter. In the first part of chapter 5, Peter has just wrapped up this section of talking about the things that church leaders should be doing and should not be doing in their role as leadership. And he says in verse 4, when the chief shepherd appears, that's Jesus, you as a church leader will receive the unfading crown of glory. So he's giving these guys who are in church leadership something to look forward to. Kind of some eternal motivation that when you serve well, God does not let that go unnoticed. He is going to give you reward for that good service. And then in verse 5, he says, likewise, you who are younger, be subject to the elders. Clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility toward one another, for God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Now, this section is where it gets a lot more practical for those of us who are not in church leadership, because Peter is pointing out a very essential truth that we all need to learn for life, and that is that humility is required, whether you're in a position of leadership or in a position of following those who are in a position of leadership. Because think about it. It takes a very humble person to lead well and to lead wisely, because they need to lead by serving and lead by setting an example, not to be overbearing or domineering, as Peter says earlier in this chapter. That requires a lot of humility. But as he's saying here as well, being subject to those who are in leadership requires humility as well. So I want to ask you to do a quick self-check. Where are you when it comes to your personal humility? If you have been listening to the Morning Mindset for any length of time, you know from a series that we did previously that I believe, along with the author Andrew Murray, that humility is one of the essential characteristics of followers of Jesus Christ, because being a Christ follower means we are becoming like Christ progressively as we grow in our relationship with Him. And He was the epitome of humility, coming to the earth from heaven, giving up His heavenly position to become one of us, to become the God-man who was born as a little infant human being, as helpless as could be, and raised in a human home, living a human life, giving His life sacrificially. All of that required great humility from the King of creation, who deserved everything opposite of what He received, yet He willingly did so. And Jesus is our example of humility. That's why Peter says, clothe yourselves like a garment, put it on. All of you, clothe yourselves with humility toward one another. So you see, we are not to have chips on our shoulders toward one another. We're not to have attitudes and who does he think she is, or who does she think she is. That is not to be our attitude toward one another as believers in Christ. We are to clothe ourselves with humility toward one another. And then Peter gives this quotation from the Scriptures. It says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. We as believers in Christ should be seeking God's grace, His help in our lives. And that comes through humility. Because if we are proud, if we are arrogant and boastful and putting ourselves forward all of the time, trying to domineer over others, like Peter says church leaders should not be doing, that is going to bring God's opposition in our lives. And so, my friends, I would encourage you with this next phrase from Peter's writings here. He says, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time He may exalt you. That's my prayer for you, friends, that you will humble yourselves under God's mighty hand today. Whatever it is that you face, whatever it is that's on your docket, humble yourselves and trust Him to exalt you at the proper time. Join me again tomorrow for the Morning Mindset.